Once upon a time, during the heart of a bitterly cold winter, a queen sat by her tall window. The land outside was covered in a blanket of snow so white and pure that it sparkled like diamonds in the pale sunlight. She was sewing quietly, her needle moving up and down through the dark fabric. The room was still, and only the sound of the needle pricking through cloth could be heard. As she bent forward, she pricked her finger by accident. A few drops of bright red blood fell onto the pure snow on the windowsill. The contrast startled her. Red on white, so vivid, so striking, as if nature had painted the most beautiful picture right before her eyes. A longing stirred in her heart, and she whispered softly to herself, "I wish I had a child with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as the ebony wood of this frame." It was a small, fleeting wish, but one that seemed to echo through the silent halls of the castle. Not long after, the queen gave birth to a baby girl who looked exactly as she had dreamed. Her skin was pure white, her lips were a deep, rosy red, and her hair was as black and glossy as midnight. They named the child Snow White. The joy in the kingdom was immense. Bells rang out, and the people celebrated the birth of their princess. But happiness was brief, for the queen's health had been fragile. Soon after giving birth, she passed away. The king, though heartbroken, tried to continue ruling with wisdom and strength. After a year, he remarried, taking another queen to stand beside him. This new queen was indeed beautiful, her face radiant and her presence commanding. But her heart was not kind. She was proud, vain, and cruel. She valued beauty above all else and could not endure the thought of anyone surpassing her. The new queen owned a magical mirror, a tall and elegant piece framed with gold. Every day she stood before it and asked, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" And each day, the mirror replied, "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." Those words pleased her greatly and kept her vanity alive. Years passed, and little Snow White grew. By the time she was only 7 years old, her beauty already shone brighter than most. Her white skin, her crimson lips, and her dark hair made her appear like a figure out of a dream. One morning, the queen asked her usual question, expecting the same comforting answer. But the mirror replied differently. "You are fair, O queen, it's true, but Snow White is fairer than you." The queen's face darkened. Fury burned in her chest, jealousy turned into hatred, and hatred into a dangerous obsession. From that day, she could not bear the sight of Snow White. Each smile, each innocent word from the child only deepened the queen's envy. Finally, her rage reached its breaking point. She summoned a huntsman, a loyal servant, and gave him a dreadful order. "Take Snow White into the forest," she commanded coldly. "Kill her and bring me her heart as proof that she is dead." The huntsman bowed, unable to disobey. He led the innocent girl into the deep forest. Snow White followed, unaware of the fate that awaited her. As they reached the shadowy woods, the huntsman stopped. He looked down at the child, her wide eyes filled with trust. His hands trembled as he raised his knife. But then Snow White began to cry. "Please, dear huntsman," she pleaded, "don't hurt me. Let me go, and I promise I will never return." The huntsman's heart softened. He could not harm such a kind, innocent child. He lowered his knife, sighing deeply. "Run, child," he said. "Run far and never come back." To deceive the queen, he killed a wild boar and cut out its heart. He carried it back to the castle and presented it as Snow White's. Believing her stepdaughter dead, the queen had the heart cooked and ate it, thinking she had rid herself of her rival forever. Meanwhile, Snow White was left alone in the forest. Fear gripped her as towering trees loomed over her. The forest was dark, and every rustle of leaves made her flinch. She stumbled through the undergrowth, her dress torn and her feet sore. "What will I do? Where am I?" she whispered again and again. She ran for hours, not knowing where she was going. Finally, as the sun began to set, she came upon a strange little house in a clearing. The house was small and curious. Inside, she found 7 tiny plates set upon a table, 7 cups neatly placed, and 7 little beds lined against the wall. Hunger gnawed at her stomach, so she tasted a little food from each plate and drank a sip from each cup. Weary and exhausted, she tried each of the 7 beds until she found one that felt just right. Curling up under the blanket, she fell into a deep sleep. That night, 7 dwarfs returned from mining in the mountains. They entered their home and immediately noticed something unusual. "Someone has been sitting in my chair," said one. "Someone has been drinking from my cup," said another. "Someone has eaten from my plate," cried the third. Then they discovered the girl asleep in one of their beds. "Who is she?" they whispered. "She's so beautiful," said the youngest. They decided not to wake her and let her sleep peacefully. In the morning, Snow White awoke, startled to find 7 little men standing by her bed, but their faces were kind and gentle. They asked who she was and how she had come to be there. Snow White told them everything: the wicked stepmother, the huntsman's mercy, and her wandering through the woods until she found their cottage. The dwarfs listened carefully. Then they offered her shelter. "If you stay here and keep the house tidy, cook, clean, sew, and wash, you can live with us," they said. "We will protect you." Grateful, Snow White agreed, and so, for a time, she lived happily with the dwarfs. Each morning, before they left for the mines, the dwarfs warned her, "Be careful. Don't let anyone in. Your stepmother may find out you are still alive." Back at the palace, the queen stood before her mirror once more. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" To her horror, the mirror replied, "You are fair, O queen, it's true, but Snow White, beyond the hills with 7 dwarfs, is fairer still." Rage filled the queen's heart. "I will not be thwarted," she hissed. Disguising herself as an old peddler woman, she traveled over the mountains to the dwarf's cottage. She knocked and called out, "Lovely laces for sale, beautiful ribbons." Snow White, thinking this harmless, opened the door and admired the lace. "Oh, how lovely," she said. The disguised queen smiled. "Allow me, dearie. Such a pretty thing needs to be just right." She tightened the lace around Snow White's waist until the girl collapsed, breathless. The queen cackled and hurried away. When the dwarfs returned, they found Snow White lifeless, but they quickly loosened the lace, reviving her. "That was your stepmother," they warned. "Promise us you won't open the door again." Snow White promised. The very next day, the queen asked her mirror again. When she learned Snow White still lived, her fury grew. Disguising herself once more, she crafted a poisonous comb and set out again. "Pretty combs for your lovely hair," she called at the cottage. Snow White hesitated. "I must not let anyone in," she murmured. "No need, dear," said the queen sweetly. "Just take a look from your window." Snow White admired the comb. When the woman offered to fix it in her hair, she allowed it. But the moment the comb touched her head, poison spread, and she collapsed once more. When the dwarfs returned, they searched and found the comb. Pulling it out, they revived her again. "You must never, ever open the door to strangers," they said sternly. But the queen was not done. She brewed her most dangerous trick, a beautiful red and white apple, poisoned only on one side. She dressed as a farmer woman and knocked on the dwarf's door. "Delicious apples, fresh from the orchard," she called. Snow White shook her head. "I can't let anyone in." "That's all right," said the woman gently. "Here, I'll cut this one in half. You eat the red side and I'll eat the white. That way, you'll see it's safe." Snow White hesitated, but the apple looked so tempting. She took a bite and fell to the ground, motionless. The queen laughed in triumph and disappeared into the woods. When the dwarfs returned, they could not revive her. They tried everything, but nothing worked. Snow White did not breathe. She was gone. For 3 days, they wept over her. Then, unwilling to bury her beauty, they built a glass coffin and placed her inside. They set it on the mountain, and one of them always stood watch. Back at the castle, the queen asked her mirror once more. This time it replied, "You, my queen, are the fairest of all." Finally satisfied, she smiled darkly. Time passed. One day, a prince rode through the forest and saw the glass coffin. Inside lay the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Reading the golden letters that named her Snow White, daughter of a king, his heart was moved. "Please," he begged the dwarfs, "let me take her with me. I will honor her memory always." At first, the dwarfs refused, but the prince pleaded so sincerely that they finally agreed. As his servants carried the coffin, they stumbled on a root. The jolt caused the piece of poisoned apple to pop from Snow White's throat. Her eyes fluttered open. She breathed once more. "Where am I?" she whispered. The prince clasped her hand. "You're safe now. Come with me to my castle. Will you be my queen?" Snow White smiled, her heart full of gratitude and joy. She agreed, and soon a grand wedding was held. The dwarfs attended as honored guests, and the people celebrated the union with music and laughter. but the wicked queen, still believing Snow White was dead, was invited as well. Before she left, she asked her mirror once more, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest one of all?" The mirror replied, "You, my queen, are fair, it's true, but the new queen is fairer than you." Terror filled her heart. She had to see who this new queen was. At the wedding feast, she realized the truth. Snow White stood radiant beside her prince. The queen's fate was sealed. A cruel punishment had been prepared. She was forced to wear red-hot iron shoes and dance until she dropped to the floor, never to rise again. And so Snow White and her prince ruled their kingdom with kindness and joy. She never forgot the dwarfs who had saved her, and they visited often, always welcomed as honored guests. Together, they lived happily ever after.